Guard your priorities with your life. You can own it. You can start to fill your cup with what is aligned with your priorities. Now, your priorities, if you've listened in recent weeks to this podcast, you know that your priorities are kind of an offshoot of your core values. You have your core values that are basically your guiding beacon in this life, the thing that really you want to design all of your decisions and everything around it is your core values. Your core values should really drive your priorities. What are your priorities for the next few years? And there really should be no more than 3 priorities that you have. Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. Have you ever heard the phrase, "my cup is overflowing"? Well, it's often used to describe somebody who is, or somebody uses to describe themselves as somebody whose life is just overflowing with abundance, with love, with goodness, with the love of family, the love of friends, and just great things happening, that they feel like there's this immense gratitude outpouring from them, overflowing with that abundance. And, if you feel that way, that's great. That's something wonderful to strive for, right? But let's face it, we don't always feel like that. A lot of times we feel like our cup may be overflowing in the wrong way. Like it's being filled with too many priorities, too many obligations, too many people coming in and putting stuff in there. That's the good news is that we have the freedom to fill our cups with whatever we want to. And the desire is to fill it with as many things as we want to experience in this life, to the experience of abundance and love and all of that stuff. But, the problem is that often our cup is filled with other stuff as well. And that's where, we run into that trap of feeling like we are overflowing and overwhelmed with other people's stuff or outside circumstances or things we just didn't want to have happen. And that's where I want to get into today is I really want to talk about this idea that we are vessels and we have a finite capacity. And while it is great to strive for this life where we are overflowing with gratitude and we are overflowing with love and we feel like our cup is overflowing in that way, we also have to be very conscious, and daily we have to be conscious of what else is filling our cup, that finite vessel that we have, so that we have room for that gratitude and that abundance that we want to have in this life. We need to make sure that we're setting the priorities in the right way to have that. And this is how it worked for me when I was in my young adulthood, and I was filling my cup with the wrong things, and my cup was being filled with the wrong things. I spent most of that time filling my literal and figurative cup with alcohol. So of course my cup was not often overflowing with gratitude. It was more spilling over due to my klutzy drunkenness, which led to that kind of stuff. But obviously, that filling my cup with alcohol for that long didn't really work to provide an abundance of gratitude or an abundant life of love and fulfillment. It was a numbing sensation. Most of my cup was being filled with something that was literally there to numb me from the rest of life. And that didn't stop other things from coming in as well. Work obligations, family drama, or emergencies, other things that might have gone in there. I felt those things and they didn't go away just because I was drinking and numbing myself into oblivion. Maybe I wasn't feeling the same as I would have felt, but I wasn't feeling much of anything. And it didn't make those things go away. In fact, it only amplified them, so that my cup was overflowing in the wrong way. It was just, it was being filled with the wrong things. And that's really the reality of our lives, is when we realize that we are just a vessel out there in this world. We're just a cup, sitting out there in the world. People can walk by and maybe they just pour a little bit of themselves into it. Maybe it's a little bit of bad news, like, hey, this bad event happened, so and so passed away, or you have to go and take care of this at the DMV later today. Another thing is filled into the cup. Or Or maybe it's a nasty comment, like somebody comments on the way that you're dressed or the way you look. Oh, that's another little thing that fills your cup because you're constantly thinking about it. Or maybe it's a major life change that is being poured into your cup before you even have an opportunity to pour things into the cup that you want. Well, a lot of those things, many of those things are outside of our control, unfortunately. Life events happen. We are faced with things. We can control how we feel about those things, but a lot of times we have to give ourselves the room to be able to process, what we have and prioritize filling our cup with the things that we want to and dumping out the things that we don't. For a long time, I also filled my cup in addition to an abundance of alcohol. I also filled my cup with news on a daily basis, with a lot of the negative social media and commenting there. I was filling my cup with talking heads, talking about things that really didn't have any impact on me personally. Things that were going on in the world that, yes, were terrible or tragic or created divisiveness. I was immersed in it, and it led me to feeling more angry, more frustrated, and that was no way to live either, because that was filling my cup with something negative. I didn't have any more capacity to put the things in there that I love. What are you filling your cup with today? That maybe if you weren't filling it with that, maybe you could truly leave room for the things that you should be prioritizing. So there's a few rules that I want to talk about that maybe you could follow to think about here when you think about this cup. And I hope that's a good analogy for you, because if you can think of your life and what you put into your circle, into your cup, and I'm using that cup as an analogy because it's literally a vessel that can only hold so much. You too are a vessel that can only hold so much. And these are some rules that you can follow so that you can be very intentional, more intentional about what you're putting in your cup, what you're leaving out, what you're allowing in, or what has to go in, but what you're conscious of, so that you can make the room for the things that you want to prioritize, and that your cup can truly be overflowing with the gratitude and the abundance that you want. There's a fine line between a cup that's overflowing with this abundance, this joy, this gratitude, and a cup that's overflowing with all of the other stuff that we just don't want in our lives, the fear, the frustration, the anger, all of that stuff. And so I hope that these rules can kind of resonate with you in terms of how you can be a little bit more intentional about that. So starting with the first one, the first is there's a little bit of a subtlety to this one, because there's a season in your life where you need to say yes to a lot of things, right? For me, there was a long season of life, even when I was drinking, where it was like I wanted to achieve more. And after I got sober, and I went through the recovery process there, and the whole world opened up to me. There was a season where I needed to prove my value to the world. And I needed to demonstrate that and create that value for myself. So there was a season in my life where I needed to say yes to more of the things that filled me up within reason. And so there's a season where if you don't know and you aren't clear on what your values are, or what you want to pursue, and at that time I was a blank slate. You can let things into your cup and you have to, there's more times you just have to say yes, so that you can experience the things that bring you joy, or the things that fill you up, or the things that energize you, and you can know what doesn't, so that you can begin to articulate and really get clear on what your core values are. And that's your season of yes. There is a season of yes for a lot of things sometimes. And there's a season of yes, especially when you do get clarity. When you get clarity on a direction you want to pursue, there is a season of yes where you have to say yes to the things, to many of the things, even some of the things you don't necessarily want to, so that you can build the experience, build the credibility, build the build the build the trust with other people, and build the network so that you can start to expand yourself and expand your abundance. You need to fill your cup with some of those things. That's your season of yes. So understanding when that season is one of the first steps. So as you align, as you find out if there's a direction you want to go, maybe you want to be a professional musician one day, right? Well, you may have to find yourself that if you have a specific niche of that music that you want to play, say you want to play folk songs at on a large stage one day, and your dream is to play on the biggest stage in the folk world, right? And you want to play for a bunch of folks, right? Right. Yeah, I know. Uh, then you may have to start at the dive bars. You have to say yes to some of those dive bars as long as it fits in those categories so that you can develop there. That's your season of yes. But as you build that credibility, and here's the thing that happens as you start to see some success, as you start to achieve more people are going to want your attention. More people and more things are going to start coming at you as you get that attention as that person. And this happens in every environment. The more success you have, the more is demanded of you. And it's not just asked of you, it's demanded. And so you have to protect that very, very significantly. This is where your season of yes turns into a season of no, because you are becoming that credible person, that is adding that value. Your value in that space that you're trying to pursue is so much greater that you have to say no. And for me, this was really hard, and still is this hard. And it's still something I struggle with today, and I work on a lot because I get overwhelmed in my cup. And there's a reason I'm doing this podcast episode, by the way. It's because, my cup has been overflowing, and not necessarily in the right ways a lot of times. And that's on me, because I've been saying yes to a lot of things I should be saying no to. And that comes down to one of the core issues that I have with regard to fear, and it is people pleasing. I'm a people pleaser. I like to please. Let me just say, I like to avoid conflict, and that is to a fault. My people pleasing has got me into situations where I've simply said yes to things that I shouldn't say yes to. So I'm in a season of saying no to more things that aren't serving that purpose. And this goes along with what Derek Sivers, who wrote the book Anything You Want and was the founder of CD Baby. He's got a great philosophy on this, which is, if it's not a hell yes, meaning if it's not like, oh my gosh, yes, why didn't I think about that before? Then it is a hell no. And that is what your season of no should look like. Is that season of no needs to be that you will start saying no to the things that aren't serving the vision for your life that is filling you up. So what is that? What is that purpose? So recognize that. When to turn from your season of yes to your season of no. How to say no better. Hey everyone, I interrupt this program to introduce you to a powerful tool that will help you gain clarity on your vision and accelerate your growth and achievement. If you're listening to this show, it is likely that you have an exciting vision for your life. But the problem is that we often get caught up in the day-to-day. We get distracted. We face uncertainty, overwhelm, and self-doubt. And as a result, the gap between where you are and where you want to be seems insurmountable. And that's why I created a framework for how you can turn your vision into strategic, disciplined action that will accelerate your results in the next 90 days. I call it the Vision Reflection Retreat. It is a 2-day solo excursion designed to reignite passion and adventure into your busy life and realign your focus toward your why. This is the very same framework that I use every 90 days to reflect on my own life and my vision and set my goals for the next quarter. And it has been a game changer. And the good news is that I'm giving away this Vision Reflection Retreat guidebook for free when you sign up for my newsletter. Simply go to flowoverfear.com/retreat and download your free guide and enjoy the journey. saying no is an art, and it's something I'm working on this year. In fact, my wife and I recently went through our annual goal setting and annual check-in where we do set our goals for the years, and we really share openly about this. This is a great relationship tool if you can manage it, if you have a big high trust relationship. And we do. And we tell each other, here's the thing that I really, really appreciate about you. So we say that first. We talk about what we really, really appreciate. And then we share with each other, here's something that you probably need to either start doing or stop doing in order to become better, or better version of yourself. And for me, it was something that I need to stop doing. My wife told me that I need to stop pleasing other people, stop focusing on pleasing other people. And it's something that, from the spiritual perspective, I've also seen in other areas. I mean, I was recently watching an episode of Ted Lasso where Sam Obasanya had actually said, I need to make this decision to stay with Richmond because I have to focus less on what other people think about me and more on living into my values. And so seeing those kinds of things are little signs to me that, I'm on the right track. So my commitment in 2024 is to stop and, pardon the language here, but stop giving a fuck what other people think about me. That's what I'm going to commit to stop doing and start focusing on leaning into my season of no so that I could say yes to the things that align with exactly what I'm trying to do. And that will serve more people. It will create more value, and it will launch this rocket ship of what I'm here to build. And it'll do the same for you if that's what you're focused on. Know when your season of yes needs to turn into a season of no. And the second rule that I want to share with you is to guard your priorities with your life. And this kind of goes along with that first rule. When you guard your priorities with your life, you can own it. You can start to fill your cup with what is aligned with your priorities. Now, your priorities, if you've listened in recent weeks to this podcast, you know that your priorities are kind of an offshoot of your core values. You have your core values that are basically your guiding beacon in this life, the thing that really you want to design all of your decisions and everything around is your core values. And your core values should really drive your priorities. What are your priorities for the next few years? And there really should be no more than 3 priorities that you have. And I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Jim Collins said that in Good to Great, that if you have any more than 3 priorities, you have 0 priorities. And that is absolutely true. Now, imagine for a second if you were in that season of, if you stayed in that season of yes when you should be switching into that season of no, and you're saying yes to more things because you're trying to please everybody, and you're just doing a lot of things. Everybody's filling their cup. They're walking by your vessel and just putting their little bit of liquid in there. And they keep doing it until your cup is full of their stuff. And now you don't have any room for your priorities. Right? There's a great example of this that I don't remember the professor who does this, but it's shown in a lot of the EOS kind of videos and stuff where it's the rocks, pebbles, and sand example or demonstration, where you have a jar, and if you fill that jar with sand, imagine that people are walking by, and what they're filling into your vessel is just little bits of sand, and over time that sand fills the bucket or that jar. Do you have any room to put the pebbles in at that point? Of course not. You don't. You don't have any room to put those pebbles in, let alone the rocks that you have. You don't have any room to put those rocks. Now, the sand is other people's stuff, or the outside stuff that isn't related to your priorities. The rocks, those are your priorities. And the pebbles are maybe the things that help you get there, but the rocks are your priorities. So that if you can actually focus on prioritizing those, you put the rocks in first. As other people fill, you can actually, there's so many crevices within that you can actually fill the sand into that vessel with the rocks in there, and you could still take on some of that other stuff. But as long as you make sure that you're prioritizing your priorities, and once you're prioritizing your priorities, you're going to find that the way in which you're serving or helping other people or getting to that other stuff, and you're guarding those priorities with your life, you'll find that more of the stuff that you do, more of the sand that's coming in is going to actually be aligned with your priorities, so that you're still serving people in the way that you need to, and your cup can overflow. But start with your priorities. Guard your priorities with your life. And keep in mind, too, that as your values drive your priorities, whatever those three priorities are, and mine are really and mine for the next few years are my spiritual relationship with God, my kids, and helping to make sure that they grow up to be self-sustaining, compassionate adults, and that I want to lean into my creative spirit and start creating more things that fill me up. Those are the three priorities I have for the next few years. And those priorities are driven by my core values and the things that fill me up. Those priorities are driving my goals. So when we set our annual goals, when we set our quarterly goals, those priorities drive the goals that I set so that I can become better at that. And then and then every single one of my to-dos drives that. This goes along the lines of that vision reflection funnel that I've talked about in the past, where you have your long-term vision of what you want for your life. That's where your priorities sit in all those. And they funnel down into, what your 1-year goals are, what your quarterly goals are, and what you're going to do today to try to achieve that. That's the funnel. And that funnel is funneling into your reservoir of experiences. And that reservoir of experiences is all of the points of reference you have to future success. That's where you want your cup to be overflowing. So make sure that you are guarding your priorities with your life. Know what your priorities are. Know that your priorities are being driven by your values. Know that those priorities are your priorities, truly yours, and not anybody else's. And guard them with your life. Make sure you put them first in your life, and you'll find that when you put your priorities first in your life, that all of that other stuff can still fit in there if it needs to, but your stuff is first. And make sure that you're prioritizing your priorities and guard your priorities with your life. And then the final piece I want to share with you with regard to your cup, your vessel, is make sure that you leave capacity in your cup. And this may sound counterintuitive, given the fact that we want our cups to be overflowing with gratitude and abundance, right? We want that for ourselves. But if we focus intently on filling our cup to the brim with everything every single day, we leave zero room for that gratitude, zero room for all of the other stuff that might come in and hit us. We need that additional capacity. We need it to make sure that all of the stuff that is outside of our control, the emergencies, the sirens, the different things that might hit us and hit our world or cause us pain, we need to make sure that we have the capacity there. It's the capacity to rest and recover from trying to work out those priorities. It's that capacity we need where we can spend that quiet time in gratitude, and we can fill the rest of that with that additional time. Because where our cup is truly overflowing is when we have the rest of that capacity filled with the time that we spend with our loved ones, or the quiet time in nature, appreciating the present. If we have that capacity, we can intentionally fill it and overflow it with gratitude. Because if you intentionally fill your cup with all of the stuff, even with your priorities and all the stuff up to the top and the brim, and you are at your limit all the time, that's a recipe for burnout. And you're not going to be any good to anyone, including yourself. And you're not going to find a lot of gratitude there because there's not going to be a lot of room for it. Where your cup truly overflows is when you leave the room for it. Consider it like pouring one out for your homies, right? That's where you're leaving room for gratitude. So that's really my lesson for today, and some rules to follow regarding how you can prioritize, how you can better fill your cup with what's most important to you, and how you can actually overflow your cup with the right things instead of overflowing your cup with the wrong things. Learning how to say no, the power of saying no. It's so important. So just to reiterate those rules really quick, easy for me to say. You want to know when your season of yes needs to turn into a season of no. You want to guard your priorities with your life and truly prioritize your priorities. And you want to leave capacity in your cup for rest, recovery, and that gratitude that can truly help you to overflow your cup with abundance. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, please share it with a friend, somebody who may need to hear this message. Please share it with them. And I appreciate you for listening over this past more than a year. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today on Flow Over Fear. If you are liking this show, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be first to know when I drop a new episode, including interviews or trainings or dad jokes. That's right, dad jokes. Add a little levity to your life. And if you liked this episode in particular and you think somebody can get something from it, please share it with a friend. And that way we'll spread the message together. Thanks again for joining me today. See you next time.